Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Yeti from Earth to Plates, and in today's video, I'm going to bring you along this entire week, and we're going to prep dinner together. I am going to make a few easy dinners, easy for me, and for me, easy means that it doesn't take a lot of my effort to make it. So some things will need time to cook or bake or whatever it is, but it doesn't take a lot of my effort. I don't have to stand in the kitchen for too long. So I have here 5 dinners that we're going to be making. We're going to make one day meatballs, and my family has been enjoying meatballs with ramen instead of spaghetti. And I'm going to serve it with some broccoli. I'm going to make a tomato soup with some garlic bread, garlic rolls, and we're going to have that with some broccoli as well. And we're going to have pulled beef sandwiches with a kale salad. The reason why I have a lot of the same vegetables, well, let me tell you first. And the last thing we'll be making is a salmon rice bowl. Now, the reason why I don't have a lot of variety in the vegetables is because the vegetables is mainly for myself. My family, they'll pick at it. The kale salad, they will eat. The broccoli, not so much. And they're quite picky. In the summer, we eat a lot more because we have the garden fresh vegetables, which they all prefer. But in the winter, when we don't have the garden fresh vegetables, I still want my vegetables, so I make stuff that I like and that I prefer. I enjoy broccoli, no matter the time of year. So, and also when I have like the kale, I have quite more than my family can eat, like in a bag. It's usually more than my family can eat for one dinner. So that's why I would make the same things multiple times in a week, so that we can finish the bag without having it to go to waste. Now, today's Sunday. Today we are having the pulled beef sandwiches, and I'm going to take you back to last night and show you how I made it, because this actually went into the crock pot and cooked overnight. So for this dinner, we're going to start off with a brisket. I am using a second cut brisket here. Next up, I'm going to top this with some sliced onions. This is onions from 2 medium ones. And this will end up as pulled beef sandwiches, and I'm going to serve it with a kale salad. Next up, the recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic crushed, but this is what I like to do. I just put it down with a knife to help release some of the oils. And I am using more than 4 because my garlics were kind of small. Next up, we're going to add some beef broth. I usually like to use homemade, but I didn't have any now. And now the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. Now, a quarter cup here is 4, so I'm going to do a little bit shy. And that's it. I'm going to let this cook overnight. And I'll show you guys in the morning when I shred it what it looks like. So I just removed this from the crock pot. It has been cooking for about 10 hours now. Removing the onions and garlic from the top of the brisket. I'm going to transfer it over to the bowl over here. So the easiest way I have found to shred up this beef is by using 2 forks, and I will go, as you can see, I am pulling it each grain apart, and what I like to do is I start from one end and I work my way down in like strips so I can get the entire, I don't know what they're called even, to shred them up into nice long strings. As you can see, I'm running the fork back and forth, up and down, and pulling it apart. And after I do like a little bit of a chunk, I take my 2 forks and I pull the strands apart even more, because they tend to be like just clumps together, like that. They're like more individual strings of meat. So I continue doing this until the entire beef is shredded up. And once that is done, I try and go through and find any chunks of fat that I see, and I pull that out just to make it a little bit easier and more pleasant to eat. This meat is so tender soft that this didn't even take me 5 minutes to shred up. One more thing before I add this back into the pot. I'm going to run scissors through them just to cut up any pieces that are very long so that it is easier to eat. Now I'm going to add this back into the liquid over here. Going to make sure it's fully submerged, or at least most of it. Okay, now we're going to cover this, but I'm going to leave it here on the counter for the next few hours. Okay, now we are about an hour before dinner time, so I'm going to take my pulled beef that has been sitting here on the counter all day, and I'm going to put it in the crock pot to heat it up again. And now I'm going to get going on the kale salad as well. I'm going to rinse up the kale. Now usually I buy a bag of kale from Trader Joe's. I'm going to pop up on the screen right here the package that I usually get. But I have some kale in my fridge that is still on the stem. So I'm going to destem it, clean it, and I'm going to show you how I throw this salad together. Now usually I serve this with some croutons that I make with sourdough. I don't have any sourdough in my house right now, so I didn't make croutons. So it'll just be the kale and some dressing. And this dressing I actually prepped last week, so I don't have to do much today for this. I'm just going to toast this together. And I think it might actually be easier to do this with my hands and massage it in. Now, because I'm serving this with meat, I'm not adding cheese, but when I serve this with a dairy meal, I add some Parmesan cheese to the salad as well. So today it'll just be kale and the dressing. And now I'm just going to toast this a bit more to get the remaining dressing off of the spoon. And now let me show you how it all comes together in the sandwich. To build our sandwiches, we're going to start off with a roll that I'm cutting in half. And you can use any type of roll here. Now I decided to hollow out the center so it is easier to eat without everything falling out. Now I'm going to get my beef that I have transferred over to a bowl with the onions and garlic in it. I didn't separate it. And I am adding that to the sandwich. Now I'm going to add some coleslaw. And you can top this with whatever you like to add to your sandwiches. This is something that my family enjoys. So I'm adding some coleslaw. I'm going to add some pickles that I have sliced up. And here I have some of the, I want to call it gravy or sauce that the beef cooked in. And I like to dip my sandwiches in there as I am eating. You can either dip it or you can pour that over the sandwich. It adds more flavor to it. And now I'm adding salad to my plate. We're going to bite into this, and this is so delicious. It is better than it has ever tasted. And I've come to the conclusion that it's probably the beef broth that I used, because whenever I bought beef broth, I didn't realize I was buying flavored beef broth and not the authentic beef. And this time I did. So definitely worth it to spend a little bit more on that broth because the flavor was so much better. And here we go. This was delicious. Hey guys, so tonight's dinner is going to be spicy salmon rice bowls. I already have my oven preheated. That was the first thing I did. Next up, I got some rice in the pot here. I like basmati rice. Jasmine rice. I rinsed it clean, rinsed it a couple times until the water was clear, and I got that cooking. By the time the rice is done cooking, that means it comes up to a boil, cooks for 20 minutes, the dinner should be done. So let's get going. And I'll show you. Next thing I do is prep the fish to go into the oven. So once the oven is preheated, that can go right in. In the pan here, I'm going to put down a piece of foil. And I'm going to get my salmon slices in here. Now we're going to make the sauce that will go over this. Okay, in the small bowl here, we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, 1 tablespoon of honey. And I do the oil first so that the honey can just run out. Now the recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of grated fresh ginger. I don't have that, so I use these ginger cubes. And I'm going to use 3 because 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. And each of these squares is equivalent to a teaspoon. And then the recipe calls for 1 minced garlic clove. So I'm just going to, I keep them in the freezer. So I'm going to leave it out on the counter for a couple minutes. And I'll add that in last. I need a tablespoon of sriracha. Okay, we're going to mix this together. The garlic is still frozen, but the oven has already reached temperature. And I want to get this into the oven. So I think I'll just take one of each of the ginger cubes and put it on top of the salmon. One on top of each salmon, because I have 3 slices. And now I'm just going to get this and pour it over the slices of salmon. Okay, so my rice is bubbling. I'm going to bring it to a simmer. I'm going to make a 20-minute timer. And now this can go into the oven for 10 minutes. 10 to 12 minutes. And now in the 12 minutes, we're going to make a spicy mayo. Then we're going to cut up vegetables to eat together in it with a bowl. Now to make the spicy mayo, we're going to get a 1/4 cup of this mayo and a 1/2 tablespoon of sriracha and combine this. I'm going to set this in the fridge so it can chill until we're ready to eat it. Got my cutting board here and I'm going to put out 2 avocados because we love the avocados with it. And I'm going to do 3 cucumbers. These I'm going to rinse out before I cut them. Okay, the cucumbers for this, what I like to do is I cut off the ends. And I like to cut them into quarters and then into individual pieces. I feel like these are pretty good bite-sized pieces. Now for the avocados, the way I like to do it, the easiest way I found to do it is to go around the pit, cut the peel, open it up. I take my knife and I'm going to whack it into the seed, turn the seed, and then the seed just comes right off. And now I'm going to cut into the avocado. I'm going to cut cubes. And I just squeeze the center of the avocado and it all just comes right out. And that's the timer for the fish. Here's our fish right out of the oven. I'm going to set it aside because we don't like to eat it very hot. Let me check on the rice. Oh, the rice is done too. I'm going to let that steam for 5 minutes before I fluff it. Okay, now with this, our dinner is prepped. I'm just going to transfer this over to a bowl, just like this. And I'll see you guys when we're ready to eat. And I'll show you how we plate this up. Okay, we're going to eat now. So I'm going to start off by putting some rice in here. In the pan still, I just push down on the fish to flake it. Now I'm going to place it over the rice. And I'm going to take this to the table and we can all customize our own bowls with whatever we want to have inside. I'm going to add some avocado and some of the cucumber as well. I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce. Whoa! Some of our spicy mayo that we made. And some toasted sesame seeds. What I like to do is I like to toast this all together so that I can get a little bit of everything in every bite. How did this come out today? Let's get some salmon, some of the rice, avocado, and cucumber. Delicious. Always, always delicious. So tonight's dinner, we're going to make meatballs. And instead of spaghetti, we're going to do ramen. And I'm going to be doubling this recipe because I have a pack of 2 pounds of meat. And the recipe is for 1 pound. Okay, now earlier today, I diced up 2 onions and I sauteed it. I had time today. I was around the house, I was doing laundry, so I had the time to do this. If you're trying to cut down time for prepping, you can do, just like I showed you yesterday, I used the frozen ginger cubes. You can find it the same spot in the freezer. Some onion cubes. I will pop it up on the screen for you so you can see what I am referring to. And I would use, those are bigger cubes than the ones from the ginger or garlic ones. From those, I would probably use 2 per recipe. Now I'm going to add 4 eggs. I'm going to add some salt. Now I don't have measurements for black pepper, but just add some. Soy sauce. This is double recipes. I would say it's probably like 2 tablespoons of soy sauce per recipe. And then I like to add some tomato paste. Probably about a 1/4 cup. Okay, now I'm going to combine this, or start combining it. Let me put on some gloves. Once that is combined, I'm going to add in some mozzarella until I get a good consistency where it's like holding its shape and holds together. And like I said in the intro of this video, this doesn't take a lot of prep to get going, especially if you're using the onion cubes instead of sauteing your own onions. But this is probably going to be the longest cook time in all the foods that we're going to be making, because this needs to cook for 1.5 hours. Okay, now this, if I form a ball, it doesn't hold its shape. So now this is where the mozzarella comes in. And this is very much by feel. So we're going to start off, this is probably about 1/2 cup. And again, I'm making a double recipe. So for those of you making 1 pound, start off with less. Now, it holds its shape very nicely. So, I'm going to take off my gloves, or glove, and I'm going to get ready to shape this into balls by opening up some cans of tomato sauce. Okay, so meatballs is something that we really enjoy in my family. So we're going to multiply, that's why I multiplied the recipe. And we're going to put some in the freezer as well. Because the ones that I made a few weeks ago and put in the freezer, some of it I gave away. And the ones that I made for my family, we already ate. Each batch of meatballs will be divided in 2 because that's how much my family needs. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to first start by doing 1/4 of the batter, 1/4 of the meat mixture, shape it and get this cooking because I don't want to eat dinner too late. Once we've got this on the heat cooking, I'll get going with the rest. So I like having my water running a little bit because I feel like if my hands are wet, it's easier to shape. Okay, now that I've got some in here for tonight's dinner, I filled up my can with some water because we want to make sure that all of the meatballs are covered. And I'm going to make sure that I get all of the tomato sauce out of the jar. Okay, now this will get covered. We'll go on the heat for 1.5 hours. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of them. I'm just going to put them in the bags instead of in a pot. Okay, so I have here my ramen noodles that I cooked up just with water without the spices. And I forgot to show you guys how I cooked my broccoli. But I just cut them into small chunks. I seasoned them with olive oil, salt, pepper, and I actually added some black garlic. And I roasted it on 425 for about 25 minutes. And I'm going to add my meatballs. I'm going to add some sauce as well, because that will add delicious flavor to the ramen with some additional sauce over top. Okay, so tonight we're going to have the tomato soup with the pull apart garlic rolls. So I'm going to start off by roasting the tomatoes and pepper that are going to go into this. I am cutting them in half and taking off the core. I'm also going to use the pepper. I'm going to use the entire thing. I'm going to drizzle some olive oil over this. I'm going to drizzle this with some salt and pepper. And this will roast on 450 for 45 minutes. While the tomatoes are in the oven, I'm going to add a half a cup of olive oil in this pot over here. I'm going to mince up all this garlic that I have here on the board. And we're going to slowly roast this, very low and slow, to get a nice brown color on them and add some nuttiness to the oil. If you do it over high heat, you'll burn the garlic and you won't add as much flavor to the oil. And you want a lot of that flavor to infuse in the oil. And you'll see soon why. And this dinner is probably the one that will take the most of my effort to bring this together. So I'll show you guys when we're ready to bring all of this together, when I'm going to make the rolls and the soup, finish up the soup. All right, it's been 45 minutes. The tomatoes and peppers out of the oven. And this is what the garlic is looking like. It looks a little bit lighter to you guys, but it's a beautiful, beautiful color. So we're going to continue with our garlic rolls now. So I'm going to get some of the oil. I'm going to try not to get much of the garlic. You don't need too much. I'm going to spread it out on the bottom of this pan. Okay, so I'm using a pizza dough here. And I'm going to try to divide them in about equal sized pieces. Now in here I have some grated Parmesan. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one roll at a time, one piece of dough, and I'm going to get it into a nice tight ball and coat it in some Parmesan and drop it into my pan. So the way that I roll it is I put my hand like a little shape like this. I curl in my thumb and my pinky, and I roll the dough between those two fingers, and my palm is resting on the counter, and that helps create the tension in the dough. We're going to drizzle some more oil over top. We're going to add some more Parmesan over top, and now we'll sprinkle some parsley. This will now go into the oven for 35 minutes. When there's about 5 minutes left, I'm going to take all this garlic with the oil and top all these rolls with some of this and finish baking it. Okay, for the tomato soup, we're going to start off in the pot here with a half a tablespoon of butter blend. And we'll do some oil as well. And we're going to let this melt. While this is melting, I am going to cut up a Vidalia onion and crush some garlic. I'm going to swirl this around the pot now that it is melted. I'm going to add in the onion and garlic that I have prepared. I'm going to add in a little bit of pepper flakes and a bay leaf. Okay, so I added a bay leaf. I mixed it together, and we're going to let this cook down for about 5 minutes. So while this is cooking down here, I'm going to get a bowl here. I'm going to add in some chicken flavored consomme. Make sure that it's not actual chicken, because this is going to have some cream in it. And we're going to dissolve this with some hot water. Now that that's dissolved, I'm going to add in some salt, a little bit of black pepper. We're going to add some marinara sauce and some heavy cream. I think I'll do the entire thing. We're going to add some flour in here, and we're going to let this cook down for a minute to create like a roux. And we're going to combine this. Now we're going to get the peppers and tomatoes in here, and we're going to pour this concoction in here. We're going to let this come to a boil, and we're going to let it cook for 5 minutes. Oh, I see now you couldn't see much. And now that it's boiling a little bit, we're going to lower the heat, and we're going to let this cook for 5 more minutes. And now that this has cooked down a little bit, we're going to uncover this. We're going to take out the bay leaf, and you can use either an immersion blender. I don't have one for dairy, so I'm going to use my Ninja blender. I'm gonna pour all of this in here and blend it up, and we'll put it back in here to keep it warm until we're ready to eat. I'm gonna show you guys once we're ready to eat how we plate it all up. So here we go, this is dinner. Now a day that I usually make this for dinner, I try to have a protein heavy lunch because this doesn't have a lot of protein. But this is what I like to do. I used to do grilled cheese with it. I got bored of it. So recently I've been making these garlic parmesan rolls. And this is how I eat it. Delicious. It's really good. Nice and puffy. Crispy outside. The garlic is delicious. Done to the perfect texture and flavor. And the broccoli I already had yesterday with my dinner. Really good. All of this. So for tonight's dinner, we're going to have chicken shawarma with Israeli salad, tahina, and we're going to have it in some pitas. So I have some pitas here that I got in the store. Just pulled it out of the freezer. I'm going to let it defrost over here, so by the time we're ready to eat, it'll be nice and ready for us. And for the shawarma chicken, I just have some chicken cutlets, but I'm going to first make my spice rub in here, then I'll add the chicken and we'll combine it all. So for the spice rub, I'm going to start off with some hot paprika with oil, some smoked paprika, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but some of this as well, some cumin, turmeric, some salt, and some black pepper that I'm going to grind in. I'm just going to combine this spice rub a little bit. I'm going to put my chicken in here, and before I toast it to combine, I'm going to put on a glove because I don't want the spices to stain my hand. Now, if you've seen my video, my meal prepping or freezer meals, I don't remember what I called it, I made this as well, and I just threw it all into a bag instead of a bowl, and I combined it in there by just shaking it together. So now you'll get to see how I cook it up and how I create a meal out of that. I'm just going to cover this with a saran wrap and put it in the fridge until we're ready to bake this up. This is best to marinate for a minimum of 2 hours. Okay, so for my Israeli salad, I don't have measurements, but these are the things that go into it. So I have red pepper, cucumber, pickle, and I like to buy the pearl onions for the red onion because I generally don't use an entire onion. So I like buying the small one so I can use however much I need. And the rest I can still use later on. They stay fresh for quite a while. I keep it in a dark, cool cabinet. And then I have some lettuce, and I bought these little tomatoes to add in as well. So I'm gonna get going with these first. I'm gonna rinse them and start chopping. Actually, maybe before the board gets wet, I'm gonna start with the red onions so that the skins don't stick to any moisture on the board. If the peppers and cucumbers don't all get into the salad, I'll leave it on a plate on the counter and I'll snack on it between now and dinner time. I'm gonna grab out some of the red ones. I'm gonna wash them. So I'm probably just gonna quarter them. So even though these tomatoes are tiny, I am cutting them up so that the juice inside can pop out because I don't like when I eat the tomato and there's still that pop in it. Now I'm gonna get some lettuce. See, I'm not gonna use too much of it. I'm gonna use like a handful like this. You don't have to cut up the lettuce. I just like to do it because I feel like it's more even in the mouth when it's the same size as all the other vegetables in the salad. I'm gonna throw that in. The last thing to be added is a pickle. Get one out of the jar. And we're gonna cut this up just like we did the cucumber. I'm gonna get some olive oil in here, salt, and black pepper. I'm gonna combine this. Okay, so I had my husband taste the salad, I usually do it myself. It's just he's in the house. I asked him if he wants it because he loves it. Um, he says it's perfect. Okay, it's been a little while, but we're going to start making the tahina now. So we're starting off with some tahini paste. I'm going to add it into my food processor. Now this recipe you can actually make in just a jar container and just either mix it with a spoon or spatula or cover it and shake it up to combine. But I like to do it like that because I like to make a double recipe usually because this is well enjoyed in my family. I'm going to juice a lemon in here. I'm going to crush up a garlic and add it in here. I'm going to add in some olive oil. Okay, now I'm going to add in some salt. Now I'm going to add in some black pepper. I'm going to grind it in. Okay, now I'm going to cover this. I'm going to start blending it up. And as it's blending, I'm going to pour in some water. Okay, I've got a jar here. I'm going to put this into the jar. And with this, dinner is basically done. I'll just have to cook up the chicken later. Bring you guys along for that. Yeah, we will be eating dinner soon. So I'm going to bake this now. Because I don't like when this is piping hot when we eat. So I have preheated the oven to 350. It just reached temperature. So I'm going to transfer the chicken onto the tray. I'm going to get it flat. And then this will bake for 20 minutes. I usually do 25 to make sure that it's fully baked through. Okay, so the chicken has come out of the oven and we're going to get ready to eat soon. So this is how we like to eat it. I cut these into little pieces. I'm going to put it in the bowl over there. As you can see, this is staining my cutting board. And that's why I've been using gloves when I was rubbing the spices together and why I'm avoiding touching it with my hands. And I'm going to rinse this board as soon as I'm done cutting it up. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the table and I'll show you how we like to eat this. So guys, I want to thank you for taking the time and watching this video and joining me throughout this week and seeing what I prepped for dinner every single night. And if you want to see some more videos, I'll pop some more on the screen for you right now. And if you want to watch some more upcoming videos, then consider hitting the subscribe button. I'll see you next time.